Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Another day of Call of Duty drama here. Standy revealing why he got dropped by the Toronto Ultra and the circumstances behind the scenes, which don't look too good on certain individuals, we shall see in a second. But also, cheating back on the menu. A lot of pro players believe that some are using a setting that's not allowed to gain an unfair competitive advantage. Very much enjoy to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. First of all though, we've got to recap the final series of yesterday. Surge versus Minnesota Rokkr. This is one of those series that Surge sometimes deliver, especially after they just got top 12 on an event. And this is the thing, of course, Phoenix and the coaching team decided to keep the roster together, which, look, it's understandable. We know what this team can do. They won an event as a quartet last year at Major 3, but, is it going to happen again? Unlikely. I didn't know where the chemistry was going to be. They seem to be getting on relatively well last night, but of course that is going to happen after a 3-0 stomp show they delivered here over the Minnesota Rokkr. Game 1 was down to the wire. Probably Rokkr could have won it. Cammy made an interesting play. They lost at 250-240, but then finally Surge have actually focused on their search and destroy, it seems. They were playing for some picks. They were actually making some intelligent early round decisions here in the Surge. They, took some advantages. At this point, it probably should have gone 2-1 in favor of, still the Surge, but Rokkr should have won this round. Mack gets the 2-piece though, and at this point the series felt kind of over. And Minnesota Rokkr do have this tendency to mentally collapse a little bit. I think it happened honestly at the Major when they were up 5-3 game 5 against FaZe, choked it, lost 6-5, and then got bodied in the losers bracket by the Los Angeles Thieves. I feel like after they lost the game 1 here and certainly after losing the Surge, this series was just done and dusted. So Seattle rolled over them here. They won the search and destroy. I thought this is pretty funny. I'm guessing Pal tweeted this out because of course Surge won at S&D and it's brought on the Cavs, the whole, pred thing over the last couple of weeks or so. But look, they seem to be in an okay situation. Phoenix was celebrating with the team after the fact, and it's a classic Seattle Surge thing. They have a bad Major 2. They start out hot in Major 3. They'll probably do quite well this Major. Maybe they'll get top 4 or something, but then next Major, who knows what's going to happen. The numbers, again, Predator 1.5. You saw Huke going off on that previous series that OpTic played, and it was like, all right, it's time for me to show that I've still also got what it takes to potentially be in the OpTic green next season. Afro and Bance both had a really rough series here, which is rare considering that Bance has been the demon the last few weeks, but not at all ideal for the Minnesota Rokkr to start off their Stage 3 campaign, especially when if they didn't play so well at Major 2, I'd have expected them to make a move. But placing top 3, they thought, all right, we've got to stick with it. But maybe, given the fact that there are options out there right now, of course, Standy and iLLeY, there's, of course, candidates floating around. Maybe there's some changes down the line here. Now, let's talk cheating, baby. So, Prolute tweets this out yesterday. Is single tap sprint essentially ATS? So, ATS is auto tactical sprint. It's been a big topic of discussion in the last couple of years, ever since it really came into effect in Modern Warfare. The idea is, if you guys have ever used it, if you just press forward on your left thumbstick, you will immediately double sprint. So instead of having to move your left thumbstick forward, then tap once for sprint, then tap twice to tactical sprint, you can literally move it forwards and you will immediately sprint. Now, the other option is, what about single tap sprint, which is an option in the game. Now, the pros decided that ATS was too overpowered, as in players that had bad movement could just move their left stick forward and gain like instant speed, and therefore it was kind of, adding a skill gap to get rid of it, where the great players would be able to do it effectively with tapping the stick many times. I don't know, I think it's a bit BS, but the pros seem to think that created a skill gap, so they've decided between them to ban that setting for the last few years. But single tap sprint is a thing in this game, and it kind of does the same thing, and it also is even better, arguably, because it still allows you to walk. If you have ADS on, you can't even walk. Like, you're always sprinting if you're trying to move anywhere. But single tap sprint, you can walk forwards normally, but then if you just press it once, then you'll immediately double sprint. So that also, reduces the skill gap to a certain extent. So Prolute reckons that despite ATS being banned, this effectively does the same thing and is still allowed. As Drazah says, how do we essentially allow ATS? Now, SlasheR in the replies is like, well, look, we don't allow it. It's meant to be banned, this setting as well. The pros have banned auto tactical sprints. They've also banned between them. Of course, it's not an official rule necessarily, but we'll see in a second, the single tap to sprint. But apparently some pros are still using it. So even as we see from Clayster here, great question, Zach. I got settings checks twice at the Boston event and had double tap on. Where's everyone else's settings checks? What I find interesting about this is that I don't know if ATS is, it's not banned by the league rules or anything. So I guess pros were requesting Clayster had a settings check to just check what he was using. And the referees go over, they check his PC, they see if he's got the settings on, and then they say, okay, yeah, he's all good. But obviously, as Clay even goes on to say in a second, what is stopping Clay or any anyone else from getting the settings check done, and then as soon as the referee leaves, change the setting back, and they go into the series, right? Nothing's really stopping that from happening. Even as Clay says, I got accused of running ATS or single tap, so effectively what Pro League's saying is they kind of do the same thing, at least in terms of they're meant to be GA'd by the pros to increase the skill cap, but if you can use one, then you're kind of getting the advantage of the other as well. And Clay told the pros that accused him of using this, I'd let anyone check my settings anytime they want to on LAN. Loaded up for the first time on the PCs. Sam Phoenix watched and confirmed, and then Austin jokingly came over later and checked too. So okay, it's not the referees, which actually doesn't make sense because it's not an officially league mandated thing. So it was the players that checked this actually on Clay's side. So I guess that makes more sense. Wish there was a better process, but there isn't something other than manually checking each other's settings, and even then, what's stopping someone from throwing it on with a match start? So yeah, really interesting predicament to be honest. And Drazah says this before then deleting it, there has to be a way to have someone check before a match because I know people have that on. And as Drazah was, I mean, obviously as Clay said, like SlasheR and Phoenix, they did the kind of checking Clay's settings, but it doesn't really do too much. And also, it's, as I say, not an official league mandated rule, so the league aren't going to do anything about it. So you kind of just have to suck it up. And to be honest, I think people would argue, Doug has certainly argued in the past, that just allow the setting anyway. Who really cares? It actually might maintain the lifespan of some of these players' hands a little bit longer because that's certainly been a big concern over the last couple of years with various injuries cropping up around the league. Now, SlasheR agrees with Drazah and says, look, allow, none of it is allowed. People are just cheating. So this is the thing, right? Okay, you're using, let's say people are using this setting, which they may well be. That's the thing with the loudness equalization, all these other things that the pros can do right now. SlasheR considers that to be cheating. It might not be against the official league rules, but in terms of what the pros have agreed, it is cheating those particular set of, you know, gentlemen's agreements, let's say. Drazah says, I'm about to throw it on because I know people have it on and do not care. Oh yeah, people definitely have it on. Same with the sound setting. Cheese Lee, he says. There's more on this as well. Even, you know, Octane replies and says, online COD is fake in every way. I love it. People use the loudness equalization, GA settings, the ping tool. It's all awesome. And Matthew's like, well, look, breaking GAs isn't cheating. But SlasheR believes, yes, it is cheating, period, in his opinion. And even Puggett says, I thought was kind of funny, was questioning how some players seem to have superhuman hearing again this week because the league did say that the loudness equalization setting is banned on LAN, which basically like pack-a-punches your hearing and gives you the amplify perk from Black Ops 2. But, you know, they disallowed it on LAN and they checked the actual guys' PCs, the referees did, to ensure that they were using, well, that they had it turned off. But online, they can't stop them. So as Octane's like, oh yeah, just a coincidence that these players coincidentally have crazy hearing again because they want those 10 points for the online matches, right? And Scrappy was moaning about this the other week, and understandably so. I thought a funny response actually from SlasheR because Ben JoeDeceives says, look, expose them, right? Who do you think's using it? Let them know or let us know. And SlasheR's like, you know, probably not a good idea to do that because it probably won't actually help resolve the situation. People said the same thing about those who abuse the bean, so that being a certain performance-enhancing pill that some pros may or may not still take. It gets you nowhere because there's no guaranteed proof, but most of the time us pros know. So SlasheR doesn't want to out any particular names, and he says it wouldn't really help, but it would be pretty spicy, so hopefully it happens over the coming days. That's all I'm going to say on it. And even as Octane says, right, I can't tell the difference between loudness equalization and blatant wall hacking in ranked play. So just goes to show, but tweet your thoughts on that in the comments, right? Like, you know, just more drama on the cheating side of the discussion. Which players do you guys think are using the loudness equalization and potentially the single tap sprint setting online to get themselves the 10 points? They go to LAN, they probably don't use it and get fried, but, you know, they get the 10 points, they might get a qualify for champs. It's a pretty big deal in order to even keep their spot if you start winning more series as a result of stuff like this. Let's talk then about some other the drama that happened yesterday is the Toronto Ultra situation. Octane also mentioned on stream last night the Fortress control was added into the game at the start because they thought it was better than Mikado. He's now not convinced that it is still, so there's a chance they might try and scrim Mikado control again and see if that works. They did mention Museum and even the Raceway map, but Octane says that for like the legal reasons, there's no way that we're going to be able to play Museum and Raceway. Somehow we can still play the hotel map, which is thankful because it's the best map of the game, at least in my opinion. But yeah, apparently we won't get anything else coming in, especially the new Museum map they added and the Raceway, just because there's legal issues because it's just a real life location. So classic disaster class from Infinity Ward. Now Standy got dropped if you guys didn't see last night from the team. Hicksy is coming in for today's series up against the Las Vegas Legion. Scrappy was quite vocal after the series they lost on against the Boston Breach. Absolute joke of a series. And shortly afterwards, Standy of course was benched from the team. And he actually mentioned this on the flank last night, what happened from his perspective. I'll share the clip for you guys because it's very interesting stuff.
I was a little sick, like I had a sickness the last few days and I feel like I just had a really bad off day. That doesn't happen very often. And then after the match, everyone just stormed out the facility. Everyone stormed out the facility, didn't say anything to me. So I'm just sitting there like I feel like I costed. I type in the group chat like, yo, today's on me, boys. Like, this won't happen again. Like, I know I up. It's a bad day. Like, I'll be better the next time. And no response. Nobody says nothing to me. Right, and
Jesus, son.
So I'm just sitting there feeling like for the whole day. I wake up the next day. My coaches want a meeting. I'm like, okay, here we. I walk in. They just say, yeah, you're going to the bench. And I'm just like, all right, nice. And then after they still don't say anything to me, I'm like, all right, boys, like, best of luck. I heard the news. I wish you guys the best. Like, I know you guys will do well because, I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, they're still all great players.
Yeah.
Like, they're still all, like, great players and a great team. And then they say stuff to me.
So this is classic Call of Duty stuff, right? Standy says, oh, sorry guys, my bad, that series in the chat. Nobody responds. So, you know, classic zero social skills for the God Pros, right? To at least tell the guy to his face what the situation's going to be. They don't say anything to him. Then eventually his team calls him up and says, yeah, you've been dropped. None of them even tell him personally, which I guess is fair enough. The coach is probably going to do it. But, yeah, still, bit of a, you know, I'm sure Standy, understandably why he feels frustrated here because, you know, theoretically good friends, the Scrappy especially, that he's been around for years. Standy puts in the group chat, yeah, sorry guys, played bad today, and then no response from Scrappy and co, and then he gets benched the next day. So clearly they were talking behind the scenes about making this happen. Now, to be honest, do I think that one bad series Standy had against the Boston Breach was why he got dropped? I'm not so sure. He also mentioned there on the episode that they said after the major his comms were too hectic. So seems to me that they've been thinking about this for a little while, or maybe they were just kind of waiting for an excuse to drop him, right? Waiting for a bad series, and then once he had one, they could send him straight to the bench. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just one of these weird behind-the-scenes situations that happens with teams where they're not quite as transparent as maybe they should be. Standy, I can understand why he feels like he's got done dirty here a little bit. But, look, at the end of the day, is it getting backstabbed? Maybe it would be getting backstabbed if we were like 10 years ago in the absolute, you know, early days grassroots of competitive Call of Duty. Nowadays, there's so much money on the line. It's just a business decision, right, at the end of the day. If they want to drop you, yes, they might have done it in a bit of a sketchy manner, but if they're dropping you, it's business at the end of the day. But maybe it's not good business, and we'll see what their match actually turns out to be today up against the Las Vegas Legion. Standy's been on the grind, though. What I do wonder, just wanted to mention quickly before we go to today's matches, what the future is for Standy, because, I mean, yeah, maybe they can rectify the relationship there, but clearly Standy feels like he's been backstabbed. I mean, he deleted that tweet where he said his homie backstabbed him, but then he obviously tweeted out this one we just saw where he says, been backstabbed so many times, started walking backwards to stop that from happening in the future, so obviously he's not so happy about Scrappy and the situation at Toronto. And then you've got the likes of Minnesota Rokkr, not doing so well potentially, we saw last night against Surge, and Los Angeles Guerrillas for sure, that maybe should be considering moves, right? iLLeY is on the bench, Standy is on the bench. These are players that could certainly upgrade certain rosters around the league, and maybe there's a possibility of that happening over the coming weeks, I think, for sure. Let's talk then about the games that are going on today. 3 matches to close out the week. The last 2 I think are very interesting. So Mutineers versus Subliners. If Mutineers played how they did against FaZe, at least in the respawns they looked okay. Subliners have improved their search and destroy lately, and their control is just so good, and Mutineers got fried in that yesterday. So I'm expecting a 3-1 here for New York. I'll give Mutineers a map. Then we've got Vegas Toronto, though. This is actually the one I'm most excited for. Even though we've got a rematch of our Major 2 Grand Final closing out the day, Legion versus Ultra is fantastic now, because obviously Legion came off a victory against Thieves, a massive one for them, and Toronto are, you know, they've just brought Hicksy into the team, which is a very questionable change, many would say, with Standy being benched. So what's going to happen here, right? Legion did say, and Clay did mention that they were getting fried in scrims, but somehow turned up in the game against Thieves. I hope the Legion going to win. I'd love to see them go 2-0 here, but I'm not sure it's going to happen. Even Toronto with their change, which I'm not so sure about, I think maybe they're going to have enough here. So I think I'm going to take Ultra, maybe 3-2 or maybe 3-1. I don't know. I want to favour Toronto slightly. Sometimes you get that kind of like honeymoon period, right? You bring a new player and it really clicks for a couple of days, and then maybe it falls off a little bit over time. We'll see, but I think I'm going to just favour Toronto. And then Thieves versus FaZe. Like, yeah, I don't know how this is going to go. If this was on LAN, we know it'd be a banger series, but online, Thieves can struggle. Honestly, though, I think it's going to be pretty close. I'll take FaZe 3-2 in the end. I feel like this could be a pretty close series to close out the week, but very much enjoy your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.